As the saying goes, the truth is out there, and some discoveries seem to prove it. From possible alien traces to strange life forms deep in the ocean, the world is full of mysteries science still can't explain. Here are 15 recent findings that left scientists scratching their heads. Number 15. Giant sewer blob. Alright, for our first entry into this weird and wonderful world, what better way to begin than with a grotesque alien worm-like life form lurking in our sewers? Seriously, we're not making this up. Now, you're not looking at the special effects props of a cheap science fiction B-movie. Instead, what you're seeing is evidence of a mysterious sewer creature that was discovered living in the sewers of Raleigh, North Carolina, way back in July of 2009. After the video was posted on the internet, theories quickly began popping up as to where this seemingly extraterrestrial creature came from, with many later comparing it to the Montauk monster that washed up on the beach in Long Island. However, it seemed that the truth was much stranger than fiction. Scientists later described the life form as a tubifex, a rare colony of worms that sludge themselves together deep underground. These colonies attach themselves to roots and eventually work their way into the weak points of pipes and sewer systems, where they then congeal against the walls. The thing is, while these horrifying tubifex colonies usually like living in sewage and pond sediment, no one is actually sure how or why they seem to seek out man-made infrastructure. It gets weirder too, because while this tubifex life form was believed to be a gathering of irregular worms, scientists now believe that they're an entirely new species altogether, known as bryozoans, small, animal-like creatures that live in colonies and stick out their tentacles to feed. Gross. Number 14. Reuben Samo. While you may have heard urban legends and strange stories of people hit on their head and suddenly developing rare and incredible talents, this next entry is one of the craziest we've ever heard of. Back in 2016, during a game of soccer, a 16-year-old high school sophomore named Reuben Samo ended up in a coma after being kicked in the head by another player. After being rushed to the hospital, Reuben was determined to have suffered a severe concussion, and doctors feared whether he would be able to maintain his motor function and language skills. However, when he woke up from treatment, he did something that he'd never done before. He spoke fluent Spanish. Believed to be the result of an incredibly rare foreign accent syndrome, it seems that some part of Reuben's brain unlocked the awe-inspiring ability to speak Spanish like a native speaker, despite never being able to do so before his accident. What the heck? Number 13. River on fire. Nothing says strange and mysterious like a river of pure fire, right? Well, while it may seem like one of the many signs of the impending apocalypse, to everyone's surprise, setting fire to a river is actually a relatively common occurrence over in Australia. Yeah, as if the terrifying spiders and man-eating snakes weren't enough to contend with, now it seems that Australia's waterways can spontaneously erupt in flames. However, the truth behind this terrifying tale has a much more serious tone to it, and the events seen here are actually the result of a devastating effect that pollution and fracking is having on our ecosystems. Back in 2016, a portion of a river in Queensland began bubbling with methane gas after a nearby coal seam was ripped open by fracking activities in the region. Although the methane seeps into the river had been reported as early as 2012, it seemed that the Australian government did little to stop the irreversible effects on the region. In order to protest the activity, an Australian Member of Parliament, Jeremy Buckingham, set sail on the river and ignited the methane seep with a kitchen lighter. The results were horrifying, and within seconds, the Queensland River was engulfed in flames. Yeah, that's one way to prove a point. Number 12. Sandy Island. Ever heard of Sandy Island? Well, while Google Maps may be the source for dozens of unsolved and unexplainable locations from around the planet, this one may very well be one of the most difficult to determine. Way back in 1774, Captain James Cook of England detailed a strange, unexplored island that was located between New Caledonia and the South Pacific, but since it was recorded in his journals, no one seems to have been able to find it ever since. Published in Cook's Chart of Discoveries, the island was believed to be 14.9 miles long and 3.1 miles wide, making it pretty hard to miss due to its relatively large land mass. Down to Cook's exact measurements, nautical charts, and sea maps began including Sandy Island, despite remaining entirely unexplored. However, hundreds of years later, when a team of Australian scientists sailed out to the exact location given by Cook to verify its rediscovery, there was nothing to be found. Did Sandy Island disappear forever beneath the waves? Was it even there at all, or just an illusion in the waves? Number 11. UFOs. Alright, on the topic of disappearing stars and invisible alien constructs, let's finally address the elephant in the room. Although it seems to have gone slightly under the radar, the United States Navy and the Pentagon have all but confirmed the existence of alien craft earlier this year. Sure, the term UFO is one bandied about too often with conspiracy theorists and tinfoil hats, but recently that whole lid got blown completely off. In fact, the oddities that were captured in the now legendary USS Nimitz tapes are one of the most convincing paranormal occurrences in history, and after months of silence, they've recently been confirmed by the United States Navy as being 100% genuine. Over 3 separate clips have since been released. The first of which was originally captured on film in 2004 and appears to show a series of fast-moving, oblong-shaped objects caught on highly advanced infrared sensors. The latter 2 clips, both of which were recorded in 2015, seem to display a group of aircraft that appear to defy the laws of physics, many of which perform aerial operations that are currently incapable with our level of technology. The footage has been so convincing that it caused the U.S. Navy to redefine their protocol for trainee officers reporting unidentified aerial phenomena to their superiors, as previously there was a stigma attached to these alien reports, with many officers being subject to ridicule and dubbed crazy if they saw UFOs hurtling through the sky. Has the U.S. Navy really just blown the lid on the aliens? Do they already live amongst us? Whatever the case, it's definitely food for thought. Now it's time for today's topic. On the morning of July 21, 2025, a man walking the quiet shoreline of Enoshima Beach, Japan, made a baffling discovery. Dressed in a white lab coat, 42-year-old local marine biology enthusiast Kenji Nakamura stumbled upon what appeared to be the decomposing body of a massive sea serpent-like creature. Nearly 20 feet long, reddish-brown, and covered in a leathery hide, the strange form coiled along the sand with no discernible eyes, fins, or scales. Kenji contacted the Fujisawa Marine Institute, which sent researchers to examine the specimen. Initial analysis ruled out known species like giant eels or oarfish. It's unlike anything we've ever documented in Japanese waters, one researcher commented. Some theorized it could be the partially decomposed remains of a deep-sea creature brought in by recent storms. Others speculated it might be a prehistoric survivor or even a mutated specimen affected by oceanic radiation. Photos and videos quickly went viral online, sparking global curiosity. While many called it proof of deep-sea mysteries yet to be uncovered, a few skeptics pointed out the uniform shape and texture, claiming it could be an elaborate art installation or movie prop washed ashore. For now, its true origin remains unknown. Number 10. Groaning in Anchorage. While there have been dozens of strange sounds that have occurred across the planet, such as the Taos hum and skyquakes, many of which remain unexplained to this day, one frosty little city in the remotest corner of the planet has been plagued by a strange sound for years on end. Anchorage, Alaska, is famed for its rugged and hardy style of living, but many residents of the largest city in Alaska have been routinely plagued by a bizarre and unexplainable sound. The most recent event occurred in February of this year, when at around 5 a.m. on a Monday morning, residents across the city were awoken by a loud screeching noise radiating from all directions. At first, it came in bursts, getting louder and louder before suddenly evaporating into nothing. Local authorities initially suspected nearby construction or industrial activity, but no projects were underway at that hour. Seismologists checked for earthquake activity, but their instruments recorded no anomalies. Others wondered whether shifting ice or sudden atmospheric pressure changes might be to blame. The military presence in Alaska also led to speculation about secret experiments or aircraft tests, but officials at nearby bases denied any involvement. While some people heard it only once, others heard it for hours on end, and people who were situated miles apart reported that the strange tone had abruptly woken them up. Some residents described it like a foghorn, others like metal screeching across metal, and the most distinctive description claimed it was like an underwater groaning, as if a submarine had slid across the bottom of a swimming pool. The truth is, the sound has been heard around Anchorage for years, and its origin still has yet to be explained. Considering the fact that every possible explanation seems to have a credible counter-argument, we may never know the extent of the Anchorage groaning. Number 9. Saturn's hexagonal storm. Did you know that there was a giant gravitational storm raging across the surface of Saturn, and it's formed in an almost perfect hexagonal pattern? Sure, from a distance, Saturn looks like a serene gas giant with stunning rings, and seemingly, it may seem obvious as to the nature of the strange gaseous environment that makes up its surface. After all, it's just gas, right? However, back in 1981, during the legendary Voyager mission, the passing Cassini probe noticed a turbulent hexagon-shaped storm raging near Saturn's North Pole, and it's been doing so ever since. Scientists were stunned by the precision of its geometric structure, with each side of the hexagon measuring about 8,600 miles, wider than Earth itself. The storm rotates with an eerie consistency, completing a full turn approximately every 10 hours and 39 minutes, matching Saturn's rotational speed. Even more bizarre, it doesn't shift or drift like Earth's jet streams. It remains locked in place, anchored to the planet's pole. Some researchers have attempted to recreate similar patterns in laboratory fluid experiments, and have succeeded in forming hexagonal shapes by rotating liquids at different speeds. The colors inside the hexagon have also baffled astronomers, shifting between shades of blue and gold, depending on seasonal changes on Saturn. Infrared imaging has even revealed that this storm stretches hundreds of miles into the planet's atmosphere, suggesting it may not be just a surface phenomenon but a deep-rooted system. For nearly 4 decades, and most likely for far longer before that, Saturn has been subjected to one of the most devastating storms in the universe, one that stretches for thousands of miles and plunges deep into Saturn's atmosphere. However, the question remains, why is it in a hexagonal shape? While it's not entirely certain, leading theories believe that the jet streams that rage across Saturn's surface meet at a hexagonal nexus in the tip of the planet's northern pole, leading to the formation of one of the most breathtaking natural formations ever seen in our solar system. Number 8. Kentucky Meat Shower. Okay, this one might not come as a surprise, and if you're a purveyor of the weirder side of the internet, then you'll certainly be aware that there are several instances of bizarre things raining from the sky, weird blobs, frogs, fish, heck, even spiders. However, few of them can compare to the sheer strangeness of the Kentucky Meat Shower, one of the strangest unexplained events in early U.S. history. As the legend goes, back in 1876, on a clear March morning in Bath County, Kentucky, a torrent of meat began to mysteriously fall from the sky. Yeah, you're hearing that correctly, meat, red meat in particular, that appeared to have been chewed up and partially digested. Witnesses described the pieces as resembling mutton or venison, though later analyses suggested it might have been lung tissue, cartilage, or even muscle from a horse or human. 2 men reportedly tasted the meat, claiming it had the flavor of lamb or deer. Samples of the mystery meat were sent to various labs, and although some tests pointed toward animal flesh, no conclusive origin was ever identified. The bizarre incident made headlines across the country, with newspapers printing wild theories ranging from supernatural phenomena to secret government experiments. Theories involving airborne tornadoes or violent wind shears were also proposed but never substantiated. In one of the strangest events in U.S. history, it seems that a shower of fresh, raw meat, some of which measured around 3 inches in length, fell from the sky in an unbelievable downpour for several minutes before quickly ceasing, as if nothing had ever happened, leaving the sky as clear and sunny as it had been before. Throughout the years, several scientists and researchers have since speculated that a bunch of vomiting buzzards may have been responsible for the event, which often regurgitate their stomachs through the gizzards when they're threatened. While that's a plausible explanation, we'll likely never know the confirmed origin of the Kentucky Meat Shower. Number 7. Missing lemur. While you might not have expected a mysterious kidnapping and police investigation to be at the forefront of the natural world, earlier in October 2020, a hair-raising caper occurred that involved an incredibly rare lemur being stolen from a zoo. Back in October, an elderly ring-tailed lemur was kidnapped from his enclosure at the San Francisco Zoo, and the authorities seemed to have zero luck in tracking down the culprit. Security footage showed a shadowy figure scaling the perimeter fence late at night, but the camera angles were too poor to get a clear ID. Investigators noted that the lemur enclosure had been tampered with using what appeared to be bolt cutters. Flyers were distributed across the city, and zoo officials offered a $2,100 reward for Maki's safe return. Local animal shelters and veterinarians were put on alert in case the lemur was dropped off or found injured. The public became emotionally invested, with hundreds of concerned citizens sharing sightings and updates online. Some even speculated that Maki may have been taken to be sold on the exotic pet market, which has been a growing concern for wildlife authorities. Despite his age, Maki was remarkably healthy and active, making him even more vulnerable outside the controlled zoo environment. The San Francisco Police Department treated the incident as a felony animal theft, launching a full investigation. After Maki's recovery, the zoo implemented stronger surveillance and reinforced security around all enclosures. The thing is, lemurs are incredibly endangered, and while they have a life expectancy of around 16 years in captivity, this particular lemur was an impressive 21 years old. Maki, who is considered the most senior lemur at the zoo, was missing for a total of 2 days, and his keepers feared the worst for his survival. However, thanks to a chance occurrence, Maki was eventually saved after he was spotted playing on the jungle gym of a Lutheran church day school in the middle of daytime. How he got there and who had kidnapped him in the first place remains to be an unsolved mystery. Number 6. The Mary Celeste. It seems that history is awash with terrifying and unexplainable mysteries, and nothing says scary like an ancient ghost ship sailing the 7 seas. While the countless ghost ships of nautical history may be terrifying enough, one of the most legendary lost vessels in history is the Mary Celeste, a mysterious merchant brigantine that was discovered adrift and deserted in the Atlantic Ocean on December 4, 1872. Found abandoned near the Azores Islands, the Mary Celeste was believed to have originally departed from New York City on November 7th, filled with supplies and a few crew ready to tackle the waves. The ship's lifeboat was missing, but the hull was entirely intact, with no signs of struggle, violence, or severe weather damage. Even the captain's logbook, found on board, made no mention of distress, and its final entry gave no hint of what was to come. Rumors quickly began to swirl, ranging from mutiny and piracy to sea monsters and supernatural abduction. Some experts suggested the crew may have abandoned ship in a panic due to a potential alcohol fume explosion from the cargo of industrial alcohol, but no explosion damage was ever found. Theories abound, but none have ever been proven. However, when she was discovered adrift less than a month later, her stores remained virtually untouched, still filled with food and enough provisions to last the crew for several more months. Strangely enough, none of the crew were to be found, and their personal belongings were left undisturbed, almost as if every single soul on board had disappeared in the blink of an eye. Built in Spencer's Island, Nova Scotia, when first launched under British registration in 1861, the Mary Celeste had enjoyed a relatively successful career as a merchant vessel, and the nature of her sudden and mysterious abandonment remains to be one of the strangest unexplained occurrences in maritime history. Pretty spooky, right? Number 5. The Aerial School Encounter. Alright, let's forget about rivers of fire for a moment and turn our attention towards events of an extraterrestrial origin. Whether you're a believer or not, if you're looking for one of the most convincing cases of UFO activity in history, then look no further than the mind-blowing event known as the Aerial School Alien Encounter, an incident that's gained a legendary reputation in many corners of UFO investigation. For those of you unfamiliar with the case, back in September 1994, more than 60 children at the Aerial Primary School in Zimbabwe witnessed a strange silver object land outside their playground before they were then approached by small, dark-colored beings with large, otherworldly eyes. Witnesses reported a deep sense of communication with the beings, not through words, but telepathy. Many of the children said they received messages warning humanity about environmental destruction. The consistency in these details across dozens of students stunned experts. Some even sketched remarkably similar drawings of the beings and the craft without seeing each other's work. To this day, their illustrations remain some of the most compelling visual evidence of the incident. At first, the teachers at the school believed the event to be some sort of practical joke orchestrated by the students, but after their stories became alarmingly convincing, a Harvard psychiatrist by the name of John E. Mack decided to conduct a study in order to determine the truth. After an intensive investigation that lasted several weeks, which involved interviewing each of the 60 children individually, he determined that none of them were lying and that their story held true, as it appeared they had each witnessed a strange flying vessel swoop down onto the playground, piloted by a group of small humanoids. Researchers have since been unable to offer another explanation, given the fact that most of these children are now all middle-aged adults, and they still maintain their story after all these years. Yeah, there's something pretty darn fishy about the Aerial School encounter. Number 4. Disappearing Star. From weird noises to disappearing stars, it seems that no mystery in the scientific world is as profound as the ones that involve the most terrifying force in the universe, black holes. Ever since Carl Schwarzschild first described the endless abyssal void of dark space that's lingering all across the cosmos, scientists have been scrambling to understand these galaxy-swallowing enigmas, to little avail. One of the most head-scratching mysteries began in June of this year when an unstable, massive star suddenly vanished from view, and astronomers who have been extensively studying the object aren't entirely sure where it went. The star, once one of the brightest in its region, had been monitored for nearly 2 decades and showed clear signs of instability, fluctuating in brightness and emitting intense ultraviolet radiation. Then, without warning, all signs of its presence simply disappeared. Some scientists proposed that it may have collapsed directly into a black hole without exploding, a phenomenon known as a failed supernova. This idea, while controversial, could redefine what we know about stellar death. Others speculate that a thick veil of interstellar dust may have obscured the star from view, although no conclusive evidence supports that theory yet. Observatories around the world, including the Hubble Space Telescope, have redirected their attention to the galaxy in hopes of capturing any residual light or shockwaves. But so far, nothing. The main culprit, of course, would be the star-swallowing black hole, the final life cycle of dead stars that occurs as a result of its own gravity collapsing in on itself. However, if that's the case, then scientists may have witnessed the first occurrence of a solar entity acting in this way. You see, the star in question, which resided in the Kinman Dwarf Galaxy, some 75 million light-years away from Earth, had shown no signs of going supernova, the ultimate ending of a star's life cycle, which results in it being swallowed entirely by the creation of a black hole. Instead, it seems that the Kinman Dwarf may have skipped that step entirely and slipped into the void in the blink of an eye. Well, it's either that or someone turned out the light themselves. Invisible alien assassin planet. Anyone? Yeah, let's hope not. Number 3. Strange seeds. Alright, receiving an unexpected package is one thing, but what would you do if you received an unidentified package filled with strange, mysterious seeds? You see, while Jack and the Beanstalk may have planted them and quickly learned his lesson, planting seeds in the ground that you receive by an unknown package isn't exactly the greatest of ideas, and recently people have been warned not to plant the mysterious seeds that they've been receiving through the mail. Strangely enough, Countless people across the US and the UK have reported receiving unsolicited parcels from China through the mail, and when opening them, they've discovered packages of unidentified seeds tucked inside. While it isn't quite clear why people are receiving these packages, most of them are labeled in Chinese as containing earrings or jewelry, which often means they would avoid biosecurity checks or charges while going through customs. Authorities suspect it could be part of a brushing scam, a deceitful e-commerce tactic used to boost online seller ratings by shipping fake orders to real addresses. However, agricultural officials are more worried about the ecological risks. Invasive plant species can wreak havoc on local ecosystems, outcompete native flora, and even introduce harmful pests and diseases. Some seeds were found coated with unknown chemicals, adding a further layer of concern. The USDA issued public warnings, urging recipients to seal the seeds and report the incident. Social media users even began uploading images and videos of their strange deliveries, fueling viral speculation and conspiracy theories. Since August, over 650 individual cases from Florida alone have been reported, with around 100 reports coming from England too. Most of the seeds have been identified as herbs such as mint, sage, cabbage, mustard, and rosemary, but their significance is still a source of mystery. Who knows? Have you received one of these weird packages? Let us know your thoughts below. Number 2. Secret pyramid corridors. Nothing is quite as mysterious as the architecture of the ancient Egyptians, right? The pyramids of Giza have long been the subject of some fascinating theories, ranging from ancient aliens to being the architecture of the long-lost human empire. But back in 2017, an even greater mystery was discovered deep beneath the pyramid structure. Scientists found that the Great Pyramid of Giza contained a hidden void that stretched at least 100 feet in length. Strangely, the space's exact dimensions resembled those of the pyramid's Grand Gallery, the 153-foot-long, 26-foot-tall corridor that leads to the burial chamber of Khufu, the pharaoh that constructed the pyramid for his own burial. Some researchers speculated it might have been a secret ceremonial chamber, long sealed off and forgotten. Others suggested it could have been a structural necessity, created to relieve weight from the chambers below. Intriguingly, ground-penetrating radar and cosmic ray muon detection were used to confirm the chamber's presence, technology straight out of science fiction. Yet despite advanced tools, the void remains entirely inaccessible, unreachable by any existing tunnel or shaft. Some fringe theorists argue it may contain hidden relics or even lost records from a forgotten era. A few even believe it was never meant to be found in the first place. Could ancient architects have purposefully concealed it, fearing what lay within? Theories abound, but with no way to enter, the mystery only deepens. What this incredible tunnel is, no one knows, but understanding its significance may be the key to deciphering the ancient enigma of the Great Pyramid of Giza. What do you guys think? Could it be the gateway to a long-lost civilization, or just a simple maintenance shaft? Number 1. Dancing Forest. And for our final entry into the weird and mysterious world, let's take a look at the Dancing Forest in Russia, an incredible forest of twisted pine trees that's baffled scientists for decades. You see, the trunk of nearly every tree in the forest is contorted into rings, spirals, and other weird loops, and the reason behind this mysterious malformation remains to evade researchers. The trees were planted back in the 1960s in order to stabilize a nearby sand dune, but the result had an otherwise unintended effect. Locals have long whispered tales of strange occurrences within the forest, compasses spinning wildly, electronics failing, and people feeling an unexplained sense of dizziness. Some even claim the forest emits a low-frequency hum at night, too faint to record but enough to unsettle visitors. In one peculiar case, a drone attempting to map the area reportedly malfunctioned and crashed after its GPS data became corrupted. Researchers who've taken soil samples report unusual mineral content that seems inconsistent with nearby regions. One theory suggests a rare caterpillar infestation warped the young trees decades ago, but even that fails to explain the symmetrical looping patterns. Others believe that leftover radiation from Cold War-era military experiments could be responsible for genetic mutations in the trees. Curiously, attempts to replicate the twisted growth in controlled environments have repeatedly failed. Adding to the puzzle, the forest seems to have hotspots, where the trees twist dramatically, while nearby areas remain untouched and straight. Satellite imagery reveals a bizarre energy signature that appears more intense over the most contorted zones. All of this has turned the site into a favorite destination for spiritual seekers, conspiracy theorists, and curious tourists alike. The instability of the nearby sand is one explanation that people use for the trees seeming to be so unstable, but studies have failed to determine exactly how or why this would occur. Some blame strong winds, others blame manipulation from humans, while rarely, people believe that a paranormal force is behind the origin of these twisted trees. While superstition fuels many theories, scientists have been left without an answer for the dancing forest of Ryabachi, and the truth behind it remains to be a mystery. And there you have it, 15 mysterious discoveries that left scientists completely baffled. What did you think? Share your thoughts in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching all the way to the end. You've been watching Thought Trail. See you next time.